Well, it was supposed to be a combat exposition, a stream all about the combat in Dune Awakening, but I think the most important and interesting thing we got from it is all about the server sizes and whether or not this is actually an MMO. And unfortunately, the answer is, well, it's fucking complicated. Now, when Dune Awakening was originally announced back in August of 2022, there were no qualms about it. In the PR release from Funcom, it was announced as following, quote, Funcom is thrilled to announce Dune Awakening, an ambitious next step to open world survival MMOs, coming to PC, PlayStation 5, and Xbox Series XS. MMO was used several times throughout the PR announcement. It was to be an open world survival MMO. Basically, it was New World. That's how New World used to be described before it became an action RPG to find a new audience after it didn't do as hot. But this was supposed to be a game that bridged the survival and MMO genres to create something truly unique and ambitious. During the live streams on combat, we finally get to see exactly what that means, along with a gradual change in marketing that dropped MMO from the game's marketing and instead began to call it a multiplayer survival game on a massive scale. That's basically the marketing department saying, we don't want to be called an MMO, I guess. Is that term becoming toxic? It kind of feels like that term is becoming toxic. My own concerns for the game's size were originally peaked during a trailer which talked about hundreds of players coexisting versus thousands. Hundreds is a far cry from what I expect in an MMO coming from the thousands upon thousands of players on servers. That put this squarely more in the category of a game like Rust. But it sounds even more different from that, some kind of Frankenstein between these. Just take a listen to how they explain it.
So Dune Awakening has a very unique, somewhat different server structure to the type of games you'd expect. If you're a survival player, you're probably used to one map, one server. But Dune Awakening has kind of a larger server structure on the back end. So we have what we call worlds. Worlds are made up of multiple servers, which we call internally sietches. So often when you join a sietch, you'll see here in this infographic that Hager Basin has this big stack of sietches. So when you sign up, you'll choose your world and then you'll join a sietch within that world. Each of those Hager Basin sietches contains maximum 40 players per map, but all of those maps add up to create the entire world. The Deep Desert, the social hubs like Harko Village and Arakeen, they are actually shared social spaces in the world, the Deep Desert being the big PvP area in the world. And of course, so we're talking about, we have this 5-day head start. I know people are concerned. The thing is, you'll be able to join worlds that we open during that head start. We will also open more worlds when the game launches, but you can also join a sietch in a world that isn't necessarily the same sietch as your friend, but you'll be able to go and visit your friend. You'll be able to do a lot of stuff with your friends. So it's kind of, you're not going to be locked out for the most part of any content when you join after the head start. You
also said 40 players per max per server or sietch. What happens if someone joins anyway, if there's
if more than 40 people try to join at one time, so it's concurrent users, so CCU, and that means that then they'll be put into a queue to wait to join. So we can have more characters on a server than 40. We can have, several hundred. But that means people play at different times of day when people join, so there will be a queuing system in place to allow people to wait in line to get into the servers, of course.
Right. And you briefly just mentioned it, visiting. So you don't actually have to be on the same, or you don't have to start necessarily in the same server. There are some caveats to it, but let's talk a little bit more about that. How does visiting a friend on another server work?
Made friends, and you can see friends automatically because they're added from your Steam list as well. So if you have them as a friend on Steam, they will show up in your friends list in the game automatically. Then you go to the friends page. You'd simply click them and say, I want to visit this friend. It will teleport you to the nearest trade post to that friend, because obviously teleporting directly to them would be exploitable in infinite amounts of ways. Once you're there, you can join up with your friend, do everything on that sietch with them, except for one specific thing. And that is build. You can't claim land. You can build on their base. You can be given ownership of their base and be able to build all the parts of their base, but you don't own the specific land claim. And that's just for database reasons. We need to make sure that we control how many people build in different locations. And then, of course, when you want to go home, you just push escape and choose return to home dimension, and it will take you back.
So basically, I guess it's kind of like an MMO light, an MMO like, not a full-on MMO, and kind of more like a lobby game in a sense, but just a little bit different. In some ways, it actually reminds me of another game that was in development and launched and then died off because I guess it was all kind of a scam, Crowfall. So Crowfall had this idea of having these eternal zones, these places that were basically your home, and then they had the more open world. So basically like a lobby into a lobby kind of thing. And that's kind of what this sounds like. And in a sense, that's also kind of what Project Ghost is sounding like a little bit, which is concerning that this might be the way that MMOs are going. But instead, with Dune Awakening, the world itself is sectioned off and broken up, with the majority of your playtime probably spent in areas with a maximum of around 40 players or so. Very survival-esque, but with these little instances that you can travel to say if your friend is on another version of the 40-player instance, then you can go travel to visit them. And then with the social hubs or lobbies being larger, you can go and join them there. But I did notice that they didn't actually say anything about the player counts in these social hubs, like the trading posts, where it's supposed to be these cities, these hubs, these lobbies. Only other place where we saw player counts was the Deep Desert, which would host hundreds of players at a time. The Deep Desert, if you're unaware, is the area that's going to be changing weekly with Coriolis storms, and it's also like the end game area. It's the place where people will be going to, and it's also a PvP on area of the game. They also talked about things like guilds and groups. Groups kind of function like the way you'd expect in an MMO or anything like that, complete with text chat. But guilds, I was kind of shocked to hear, would only go up to 32 players. Even though it was over the whole world, meaning your max guild in the Deep Desert with hundreds of players is going to be 32 players. This is smaller than a raid in a 25-year-old game in Everquest. Now that said, Everquest realized they had some load balancing and content issues in zones back around, I believe it was like 2015 or 2016, and instituted pick zones, which basically sounds like what it is. You pick the zone. It's just another instance of the zone on top of itself. Except this is still a smaller scale than that, and the idea of queues to get into the area where your base is sounds kind of abysmal. Yes, you did hear that right. If the little slice, that little server in the world that you're on has too many players in it based on the time that you're trying to log in, you will have a queue to get in, and that really sounds kind of awful. So that alone, I think, makes my concerns for this MMO or this survival game or whatever the hell it is, it made them jump significantly. I think given this information, it's kind of safe to say that Dune Awakening leans much more close to, say, a survival open world than MMO. But it's not quite the 50-player servers of Conan Exiles, and the fact that these servers are persistent and hosted and link up to a space where hundreds of players can coexist or kill each other, it adds a little bit of a wrinkle to the game. But it makes me wonder if this was kind of de-scoped during production from the original announcement back in 2022, or if this was the plan all along. Did they plan to have just a couple hundred players, or were they originally looking at thousands? I don't know, but I'd be curious to find out. And honestly, the thing for me is I thought New World's 1,000 to 2,000 player servers back in 2021, I thought they were too small. So this is significantly smaller than that. Whatever the case, it looks like the MMO genre will continue to shift from New World and Archage Chronicles, now calling themselves action RPGs, to games using lobby systems instead of open worlds with thousands of players. Are we looking at a condensing, a shifting of the games, or is this just kind of a one-off? Let me know down in the comment section what you feel about this. Are you excited, disappointed? What are you thinking? I would love to know. But as always, please be kind and respectful to each other and don't yuck someone else's yum. My name is Redbird Flynn. Thank you so much for watching. And if you're interested in Dune Awakening, keep an eye on this channel because I may have something for you in just a bit, maybe a week or two. Thank you so much and have a wonderful day.